Hello, Miss Lahart here, coming at you. If you want to see my face, there I am. Woohoo. LT, this is LT5. I know this is wrong. I forgot to fix it. But anyway, we're doing LT5. I could find an exponential function given 2 points. Remember that the Delta math assignment is due on Friday. I will be putting a grade in the grade book on Friday for that. So make sure you've got it done. Your weekly review is due today. All right, this is what we got up next. Okay, we're gonna do LT5, LT6, LT7, and LT8, and then we got 2 days to review, and then we have a test on Friday. LT5, you did a little work with Common Core with exponentials. We're kind of just growing it. So basically what's going to happen is you're given 2 coordinate points and you got to come up with the beautiful formula. So an exponential function of the form f of x equals a times b raised to the x is presented in the table below. Determine the values for a and b and explain your reasoning. So if you remember from yesterday, the y-intercept is what gives you that a value. So if you look at the table of contents or table that we're given, we are given the y-intercept with 0, 5. So our a value will always be 5. The b value is what is the y being multiplied. In this, it's very clear to see that the y value is being multiplied by 3 in order to get to the next one. So there's our beautiful equation. F of x equals 5 times 3 raised to the x. An explanation would be that a is always the value when x equals 0. It's always going to be your y-intercept, and b will always be the multiplier per unit increase. B will always be the multiplier per unit of increase. Okay, pause the video if you need to write any of that down. All right, here we go. So another question. So for an exponential function in the form of f of x equals a times b raised to the x, it is known that f of 0 equals 8 and f of 3 equals 1,000. So I have the coordinate point 0, 8. I have the coordinate point 3, 1,000. Okay. So again, we said in the last thing, if you have your y-intercept, you have your a value. But if you really want to get into it, why it happens, like if I plug in my x value for my exponent, which is 0, and I plug my 8 in for my f of x because that's my y value, b to the 0 is 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So that really just gives you that a equals 8. Once you know one of your variables, you can plug it into an equation using our other coordinate point. So again, x is 3, y is 1,000. I found that my a is 8, and now you just got to solve it. Divide both sides by 8, you get 125 equals b cubed. Now, we haven't really hit the root chapter, so there's 2 avenues you can take. You can take the cube root of both sides, or you can raise both sides to the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 3 over 1 is 1 over 3. 125 raised to the 1/3 is the same thing as the cube root of 125, which is 5. So now that we have our b value, we can plug that in. So y equals 8 times 5 raised to the x, and we have our equation. Okay, pause the video if you need to write any of that down. So again, if we plug in, you can come in. Sorry, principal just came in. So there's our equation. Pause it if you need to write any of that down. The second part for that, C, f of 2. Okay, if I use my equation and plug x equal 2 in, I end up getting 200. So f of 2 equals 200. Bada bing, bada boom. There is that one. Okay. Sorry about that. So there is some writing in here. So again, we have f of 4 equals 3, f of 6 equals 48. It's a very systematic system. Step 1, set up a system. Step 1, plug in your 2 equations. And I know that that line wasn't supposed to be there, so I apologize. So I always have the top one be the exponent with the highest. So like 6 goes here, 48 goes here, using the other equation, okay? When my x is 4, my y is 3, boom. Then step 2, divide your 2 equations together. Divide your 2 equations together. 48 divided by 3, you'll get 16. The a's eliminate because a divided by a is just 1. 6 minus 4, you get 2. Now, how do you get rid of b squared? You take the square root of both sides, or you raise both sides to reciprocal. The reciprocal of 2 over 1 is 1 over 2. 16 to the 1/2 is 4. So my b value is 4. Once you have your b value, you're just plugging it in and solving for your a. So I picked my second equation. 4 to the 4th is 256. Dividing both sides by 256, you'd end up getting a is 3 over 256. And there's your final equation. Y equals 3 over 256 times 4 raised to the x. And that's it. Okay. So step 1, set up a system. Step 2, divide the 2 equations together. Step 3, solve for b. Step 4, solve for a. Okay, and then state your equation. Pause the video if you need to write any of this down. If not, here I go with another example. Okay, sorry, you just didn't have any of that. So again, we got 2 coordinate points. Step 1, set it up in a system. I always lead with the highest exponent, and I'll show you in the next example what happens if you don't. Okay, I always keep my x that's larger in the top, just so I don't have to deal with negatives, but I'll show you in the next example that that's fine. Step 1, set up your system. Step 2, divide. Step 3, solve for b. So in order to get rid of b cubed, I can raise both sides to the 1/3. I end up getting that b is 1.5. Step, I think 4, we are into plugging it in and solving for a. So I picked the second equation. I plugged in 1.5. 1.5 squared is 2.25. Dividing both sides by 2.25, I end up getting that a is 16. And then I get y equals 16 times 1.5 raised to the x. And there's my equation. Okay. And on your notes, I have the steps written. So pause the video if you need to. Graphically, and again, this is the one where I show you that no matter what equation you start with, it doesn't matter. So this one, I start with my -2. Okay. Divide the 2 equations out. You end up getting 256 equals b to the -4, because -2 minus 2, you get -4. You still are going to raise both sides to the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of -4? -1/4. So you end up getting b equals 1/4. Plug it into one of your equations. I chose the first one. 1/4 raised to the -2 is 16. Divide both sides by 16. You end up getting a equals 8. And there's your equation. Okay. There's your equation. Pause the video if you need to write that. The next one, again, word problem. Make sure you read it and understand. We have a bacterial colony is growing at an exponential rate. It is known after 4 hours, its population is 98. After 9 hours, it's 189. Determine the equation that forms the model population y as a function of number of hours x. So they tell you within the problem that your x is the hours, your y is the population. So we have 498, 9, 189. Set up your 2 equations, divide them out. Okay. Now you should try not to round until the very end. Okay. However, when in doubt, round to 4 decimal places. So if I raise both sides to the 1/5, I end up getting 1.1404. I plug that in and solve for 4. I divide out. Now, this is where you should never round until the end point, okay? So I didn't round. If you rounded here, you might be a little bit off, but no matter what, dividing over y 1.69, you end up with a equals 57.9. So then there's your equation. You should try not to round to the end. We will get into exponential growth formula actually in the next few lessons, and then that means that right there we have a 14% growth. But getting the equation is where it's at. Okay, pause the video if you need to. Anyway, here's your steps. Set up a system, divide the system, subtract your exponents, raise both sides to the reciprocal, solve for b, plug in b and solve for a, state your equation. Okay, hope you have a great day. That is Miss Lahar out. Bye.